Welcome back to Fourth Michael News. Hit the subscribe button because the dev server for 1.5 was open Saturday. Let's start out talking about the new tanks that are coming. After about a year of anticipation, the US is finally getting the M1a1 Abrams, which looks and plays like the other Abrams, although it has a copy of the 120mm Rheinmetall that is very popular on the Lo8 A3 and Type 90. And just like the Type 90, its stock shell is, of course, Heat FS with about 650mm of penetration, which can get the job done at top tiers, but it's not nearly as effective as that high velocity APFSDS. Speaking of which, its APFSDS shell, M829, looks like it's going to be the best in the game, outmatching even that one French shell up until around 2,000 meters. And on its armor, I was expecting it to match to the M1IP's armor, but it actually matched up to the regular M1 Abrams armor. I'm not sure if this is intentional or historically accurate, but this is the dev server, so take it with a grain of salt. If it's wrong, they'll fix it in the future. If it's right, hey, good job. The next up vehicle to talk about is the T-80U, covered in Contact 5 second generation explosive reactive armor, able to deflect even APFSDS shells, not just heat. And that Contact 5 really does the trick. I tested it out on the protection analysis and it seemed to deflect most APFSDS rounds outside of the areas where it's not being covered, which also happen to be the common weak points of modern Russian vehicles, the sides of the gun and the driver hatch. Also, the sides themselves, they do have a bit more protection than the usual Russian vehicles, but it's still not enough to deflect APFSDS. And don't let those rubber skirts fool you. They're not going to stop anything from penetrating that lower front plate. As for ammo goes, nothing really has changed between this one and the other Type 80, except for the newly added Mango shell, as it's apparently called, which isn't setting any new records for APFSDS, but it is a whole lot more powerful than the standard APFSDS of the Russian vehicles. And I tested on the test drive, and it is definitely possible to punch through the turret of the Abrams. Altogether with Contact 5, the Mango shell, and some pretty good maneuverability, it's very possible the T-80U will be able to stand up to its opponents, unlike the predecessors who seem to fall short thanks to the obvious weak spots. Also coming to the Russian tree is the Tunguska self-propelled anti-aircraft gun, armed with 4 30mm machine guns, 8 anti-aircraft missiles, and set up with some radar, which we'll get to in a second. First, I want to talk the guns. Your typical 30 caliber anti-aircraft guns, pretty good. Penetration's all right. I don't think you're going to be killing too many tanks unless you sneak up of them from the side. The anti-aircraft missiles aren't going to be used for killing aircraft. They have 41mm of penetration. They're essentially guided KV-2 shells and just murder any tank. They have a problem. They can't get through any form of composite armor, but they seem to just murder tanks that don't have any form of composite. I'm not sure if it's like accurate. There might be a bug in there, but it's very comedic to watch the missiles it cuts through the tank like butter. So if those missiles are just a fluke, maybe they'll change in the future. They do have 41mm penetration and proximity fuses to blow up aircraft easier, and I assume a whole lot of HE, so it's very possible they could murder tanks just that easily. But the radar on the vehicle is really what matters. Radar in general has been added to multiple vehicles, SPAGs, and aircraft. But we're just going to talk about the SPAGs right now. The SPAGs that got them, well, they're the top tier SPAGs. The Leopard, the Automatic, the Marksman, you know, that stuff. So far, I found the radar kind of complicated on how to use it. Perhaps a tutorial would help, but you gotta set up 4 or so more buttons to figure it out. Really, I think you only need to use 2 of them to use it effectively, and I'm sure that if you knew how to use the other buttons, it'd be even more effective. But just using the 2 to turn it on and off and then to lock targets works, although it takes a little while for it to actually lock target. I'm not sure if that's historical or a bug. But once you lock a target, you get a lead indicator, and it's not like the usual lead indicator. It is much more accurate, although it seems to have a bit of an issue with if the aircraft is moving, the lead indicator will stay in a position and then readjust, and there's a time in between it readjusting and being in position where you could easily miss. But it's pretty accurate most of the time, and you just take a few shots and the enemy aircraft is dead. It's really gonna reinforce that no-fly zone at top tiers. However, it has a limited range, And I think most helicopters will be outside of it. That's where the guided missiles come in. The way the Tunguska's guided missiles work is they're like ATGMs. You just point and the missile flies towards there. As for other nations, it is planned that they will get SAMs as well, but we have not heard on exactly what these vehicles will be or when they are planned to come, but I hope at least by the next patch. Now, normally after Russia comes stuff about Germany. However, according to the preliminary patch notes, Germany didn't get anything this patch along the lines of tanks. However, that's not true. I was not there to see it myself, but if you were able to log into the dev server in the first 10 minutes, we've been able to see and test drive the Leopard 2A5. The YouTuber Bacon Gaming happened to be one of these people who logged in time and made a pretty solid video explaining all the details about it. There should be a link to that in the corner and in the description below. Anyways, about the tank, it comes stock with a DM23, and you can research to get a heat FS shell, and of course a DM33 is a top tier modification. Now I'd love to talk about the armor here, but that was kind of the reason why I was taken out of the dev server, is the armor is completely not modeled at all. The steel outer shell is, but the composite stuff, that what people really care about, is not there. Now I'm pretty interested in what this is going to bring to the game, because according to many an internet historian, the turret of the Lo8 A3 is essentially impenetrable to anything that we have currently in game. If that happens to be the case, this is an incredible amount of power creep. The British's new top tier tank, the Challenger 2, is exactly what I expected to be, not going to save them. While it does have a very nice gun and penetration with this top tier shell, it suffers from the same weak points as the Challenger 1, shooting the lower front plate, the turret ring, the driver hatch, and you can actually get through the upper front plate with most shells of that tier. At the very least, you don't have to start with APCR. The new Japanese premium Type 74G Kai is essentially Type 74 at a higher battle rating with side skirts. If you're looking to grind out the entire Japanese tree, well, I'm not even sure if I can recommend you buy this, because the regular Type 74 is at 8.7, and it does alright at 8.7, especially if you have the APFS DS, which actually is stock now, and the Type 74G is at 9.0, but hardly anything between them changes. The gun's apparently a bit more accurate, it has side skirts, that's about it. It does have the new Type 93 APFS DS round, and it's a very nice round, but so does the regular Type 74. Now, for the regular Type 74, it's a top tier modification, but really at 8.7 with not too bad APFS DS, you'll be doing alright. I'd hope that they'd add more vehicles to Japan so you have something to grind out with the Type 74 and reduce that battle rating. Otherwise, I don't have much else to say on it. Italy got a new top tier tank, the Ariete Pre-Series, which was talked about during the release of the Italian tree. Now this thing is coming at us at 9.7, at least on the dev server, with a L44 and DM33 as a top tier modification. It comes stock with a DM23. Now you're probably thinking, what is this thing doing at 9.7? Obviously it's a top tier tank. Well, it has no armor. Like, I know, yeah, top tier tanks, they typically don't have much armor besides where it really counts. This, no, it only has spaced armor, only. Now, maybe that's an issue and it's the dev server thing, but it's also slow as hell. Like, typically the saying goes, no armor is best armor, but I'll tell you, it's always best armor because the vehicle typically is fast. This tank isn't very fast. It's kind of sluggish. However, it will have a very nice gun for 9.7. As I said, it has DM33. And finally, the French. What are they getting for tanks? Nothing. A many French fry were getting quite excited for the Leclerc to be added, and it was shut down directly by Sim 1080p, stating that the Leclerc won't be in update 1.87. The major addition for the French this update is their helicopter branch, which we'll get into in a second. The way he words this makes me think maybe there's still a hope for Leclerc to come next patch, like they're planning on it and just wasn't ready in time, or maybe the tanks that were added aren't up to the power of the Leclerc. Keep on wanting to call it the Eclair. A final bit on the tanks, there's some pretty heavy restructuring to the ends of the trees. To get to the T72A, you have to first research the T62M1. To get the T62M1, you first need to research the T55A. And to research the T64A 1971, you need to first research the T10M. To research the Type 90, which has been moved to rank 7, you need to research the Type 74. To research the KPZ-70, you need to research the mouse. And to research the M1 Abrams, you first need to research the XM803. On top of that, the T55A-M1, leopard A1A1 L44, XM1, and Shot Cal Delit have all been moved to rank 6. Now with that out of the way, we can get to the aircraft, because man, we have a lot of things to talk about. First up, a handful of aircraft got radar. The LA-200, MiG-19 PT, F-3D, Sea Venom, and Javelin got target detection and tracking radar, which essentially means that they have lead indicators. The Do-217 N1 and N2 and HE-219 got target detection radar. Now about that tracking radar, as useful as that could be, I have a feeling that it's not going to really change the game too much. There's going to be the every once in a while skilled player who really makes use of it, especially on the weaker aircraft like the F-3D. But from what I found, it takes a while for it to actually lock onto a target, and currently the detection thingy is bugged. Of new stuff, while the US didn't get any new aircraft, a few of their older aircraft did indeed get air-to-air missiles. The F9F8 was able to carry 4 AIM-9Bs. The FJ4B was able to carry only 2 AIM-9Bs, but also could carry some bombs out, which could make you quite effective at killing enemy tanks and still being able to defend yourself with the edge of air-to-air missiles. And the F100D got AIM-9E missiles added as well. The US Sabers did not get air-to-air missiles, and this was contested on the forums, people showing various documents stating that Sabers were indeed at a time armed with Sidewinders. If you feel that these jets should be armed with Sidewinders, I suggest you go file a bug report on the forums with some factual documents, or at least a photo of a US Saber with Sidewinders. The only addition for the Russians was the radar in the MiG-19 and LA-200, and I guess the Mi-24s got their cockpits, which is neat. The British got the Seahawk, no, not the football team, and it's alright. I'm not sure how long it's going to survive at 8.3, but it has some good amount of ordnance, so you could kill a lot of tanks if that's what you would look to use it for. Germany also got a Seahawk, but theirs has Sidewinders, and is also 8.3. It's a very fair and balanced premium. Germany also got another Canadian Saber, the CL-13A Mark VI, which is like the CL-13A Mark V, but all around better, and has Sidewinders. We also got the MiG-19S, which is like the MiG-19 PT, but generally faster, can turn better, stats are generally better, but does not have air-to-air missiles, though it does have some bombs. Japan seems to be the star of the show, getting the Mitsubishi T2 Jet Trainer, which is going to be the fastest aircraft in game, with the best air-to-air missiles, a Vulcan Gatling cannon, and target tracking radar to top it all off. This vehicle is like the very definition of power creep. Now I don't want to oversell it and claim it's going to ruin all jet battles and kill everything and have a 100% KD ratio. I do think it's going to be very good, and it's setting the stage for what's next to come in War Thunder. The other jet that Japan is getting is, well, it's not actually new, it's just a reskin of the F-86 F-40, but premium. Speaking of which, this and the premium one now have Sidewinders, which is cool. It's a little lazy for them to just make the rank 9 premium for Japan a copy paste, but there's not a whole lot you can work with when it comes to Japan post-war. I was thinking maybe they could have added the Fuji T1 Jet Trainer, which was Japan's first native built jet after the war. That thing was not worthy of being 9.0, maybe like 8.0 or something, maybe 8.3 because it could carry Sidewinders. Unexpectedly, Italy also received some new aircraft. The G91YS as a new rank 6 jet for them, armed with 2 30mm Diva cannons, some Sidewinders, and being at 9.0, it could be a rather good aircraft. The other jet that Italy got was the G91R3. Its performance was just like the main tech tree G91R1, but it could carry some air-to-air missiles and a French version of the bullpup missiles, which could also work as anti-air missiles, although trying to aim those things at an enemy jet seemed almost impossible. But this jet having bullpup missiles will definitely lead to Italy continuing to rule top-tier ground forces, at least we're near on 9.0. Italy also got the SM-92, the only new aircraft of this patch that is not a jet or helicopter, and it's a weird one. 2 fuselages, a good amount of guns, and can carry up to 2 500-kilogram bombs. Personally, I feel it'll be a really good tank destroyer for ground battles, although don't expect that back turret to ever defend you from anything. It has a very limited range. The French got 2 new jets, the MD-460 Super Mystery, a new top-tier jet for the French, able to take out like a million different types of rockets, armed with 2 30mm Diva cannons, French bullpups, and some Sidewinders. I think it'll do pretty alright at 9.0. The other French jet was a Israeli Voltor that could take out air-to-air missiles. That's the really only difference. Final note on aircraft is that there's some major economic changes coming. The Russian MiG-15, MiG-15 bis, MiG-17, the US F-86A5, F-86F2, F-86F25, and the Japanese F-86 F-30 and F-86 F-40 are getting some pretty massive SL cost reductions. But the fun doesn't stop there, as they have plans to reduce the research cost of most Rank 4 and Rank 5 aircraft, and Rank 5 and Rank 6 tanks. No word on how much these reductions will be, but they also plan on reducing the repair cost, the cost of ammunition, a reduction in crew training costs, and increase the reward multipliers. This is obviously so players can get to the new top tier vehicles faster, because adding all this content that 1% of the player base will have to play is pointless. As for helicopters, France got a whole new tree of them. Russia and Germany got some new cockpits for their helicopters. Well, the Hind got new cockpits. And the Bo 105s got ability to take out some more loadouts, including 50 caliber gun pods and missiles, which would be great for helicopter on helicopter combat, but wouldn't do too much against tanks. So the real star is the French helicopters, and their first one is actually a US helicopter, but armed with 2 SS-11 missiles, some Hydra rockets, and 4 machine guns. It's not like the first Russian helicopter that tips over if you turn it too fast, but it's not necessarily the most agile vehicle. The second helicopter in the line is exactly like the first German helicopter in their line. It's the Alouette II, and has the same loadouts. Really, the only difference is that there's French markings on the sides and bottom. The third helicopter in the line is the Alouette III, which has 4 SS-11 ATGMs, which is exactly the same as the prior one, but this one comes in at 9.3 for some reason. It's a bit of a bigger helicopter, and no machine guns, no ability to carry rockets. I'm not really sure why it's 9.3, but whatever. The premium SA.316B is also an Alouette III, though it has rockets, machine guns, and 6 ATGMs, all are Russian type. And for some reason on the dev server they weren't functioning like at all. I was thinking maybe they were first generation ATGMs, but I didn't really see any location to steer missiles in the control setup for helicopters. And despite having just an all-over better loadout, this thing's also coming at 9.3. The 2 Rank 6 helicopters were Gazelles, the first one having a 20mm cannon, and the other side could carry either ATGMs or air-to-air missiles. The second Gazelle was essentially the same thing, but did not have the 20mm cannon, leaving both sides open for holding ATGMs or missiles, or a mix of the two. Now, unfortunately, I was unable to record really anything for boats, though I reached out to a few places and I did get some footage. So first up is the Brooklyn class light cruiser, which will probably completely overpowering the current ruling masters of the Germans. Now, as I said, I didn't get any gameplay footage of the Brooklyn, but luckily a small YouTuber by the name of the Alpine 223 let me borrow his footage, and as you can see in the background, its large amount of cannons and high reload rate allows you to basically go rapid fire when using ranging shots. But not only that, altogether when firing a full broadside, it's a pretty devastating blow to most light cruisers out there. There's also the Sabers added a destroyer with 8 guns and a lot of torpedoes. Nothing really much to write home about. For Germany, they're getting the Nürnberg, a light cruiser with not nearly as much ordnance as the Brooklyn, but it does have a very good amount of anti-air defense. I'm not really sure if that's worthy of a 5.7 battle rating alongside with the Brooklyn. Germany also got another destroyer, the Type 1936A mod, which is like the other 1936, but instead of 126mm guns, they're 150, and they pack a lot of punch, easily able to devastate other destroyers. Although it's at 4.7, and in a full up tier, we will be facing off at things like the Brooklyn class. For Russia to defend itself against the Brooklyn class, they have the Kirov reporting. Armed with 9 180mm cannons, it's technically a heavy cruiser, but it's not really worthy of the heavy cruiser title compared with its armor and how it would do against other heavy cruisers. I think it should be relabeled to actually be a heavy cruiser, but it shouldn't be necessarily called a heavy cruiser. Regardless, anyways, it's pretty good. You get a lot of firepower with those big cannons. I'm not so sure if it's as good as the Brooklyn. I think it will be able to stand up to it, but in a one-on-one fight, the Brooklyn, I'm pretty sure, has a faster reload rate, and having also more cannons and I think more armor. I didn't forgot to check. Along with that, the Russians are also getting the Project 30, which had 4 130mm cannons and 2 twin turrets. I'm concerned that the reload rate would be rather slow, and if one turret's out, you're down to 2 guns. Though on the bright side, it was only 4.0. The Leningrad for the current naval event that's going on was there, although I've already said just about everything I have to say on that ship. And the British were not left out. They also got another light cruiser, the HMS Lender, which was only 5.3 and had 4 6-inch guns, which are the biggest guns the British have had so far, but overall the ship didn't look very impressive, especially compared to the other light cruisers that the other nations are getting. Now, before the dev server was live, as usual, Mike 10D did a data mine to find out everything that was coming in it. And there were 3 vehicles that did not appear in the trees of the dev server under the title Clan Only. These 3 vehicles were the SKR Project 35, which is a Project 159 with hedgehogs, the Blackburn B-48 fire chest, which is a very bad looking naval fighter that could carry torpedoes, and the M1a1 improved tow vehicle, which is a M1a1 III that could fire tow missiles. Now, in the data mine, it is clarified that some of the vehicles are for clans only, although the clan vehicles are not rewards for winning, they are obtained through research. You will not need to be in a top clan to get it. I'm really unsure what exactly this means. Like, I'm assuming it has a lot to do with World War mode. Perhaps in World War mode there's some sort of research thing where you can research these vehicles as you play, and that's the way to entice new players to come and join clans and look into the new game mode. So if that's the case, maybe I'll have to look into making my own clan. And a final note on this data mine is that apparently there's some sort of event coming involving crafting. My theory is this has to do with April 1st that is coming up much sooner than you may have suspected. And it's likely to have something to do with crafting. Hopefully it's not as awful as the last year's April 1st event was. Personally, I don't mind the crafting in events. I like how they changed it up a bit. I do mind, however, how grindy the crafting events have been in the past. I feel if they've reduced the amount of grind that is in those, that people wouldn't hate the crafting system nearly as much. And that's just about everything that happened in the dev server. Speaking of which, remember, this was dev server stuff, which is all subject to change. I don't know, they could just edit out the M1a1 next dev server if they wanted to. So take it with a grain of salt, but a pretty big grain of salt. Like, you could get some chunks there. If I've missed anything, or you have any comments or concerns, you can hit me up down below in the comments or on my Discord. If you've liked this video, hit the like button. If you didn't like the video, don't hit the like button. If you want to see more, I make news videos for War Thunder every weekend. I make random videos throughout the week, and I like to stream on Saturdays, so hit that bell icon to be notified anytime I upload anything. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day. I want to apologize for this week's video being a little bit shorter than what they usually are. To make it up, I decided, hey, why not reward those who stuck around to the very end with a little something I'm going to call bonus news. This week's bonus news was that on the dev server, the penetration formula changes were applied to APDS rounds, and the outcome was amazing. At least for the British. The 17-pounders APDS at 10 millimeters at 0 degrees would penetrate 271 millimeters, and keeping above 200 millimeters up to 1500 meters. The 77 millimeter gun, which is actually 76 millimeters, on the Comet, its APDS now penetrates 220 millimeters at 0 degrees, which isn't too far off where I believe it used to be. Now this is where things start to get fun. The 20-pounders APDS at 10 meters, 0 degrees, could penetrate 369 millimeters. Now in case you forgot, the 20-pounder at the lowest appears at the battle rating 6.3 on the Challenger. It commonly appears on 6.7 tanks, like the FV4202 and Centurion at 6.7. A round with 369 millimeters of penetration will be fighting Tiger 1s, and God forbid whatever happens to run into it. Now, it does lose quite a lot of penetration at extreme angles, having at 10 meters at 60 degrees only down to 103 millimeters penetration, which will basically murder an angling Tiger. At 7.0, British Tree is full of L7 cannons, and the APDS on the L7, at least the British one, the L7A1, does 371 millimeters of penetration. Not too much of a jump like we saw with the 17-pounder to the 20-pounder, though this one is able to keep up at least 100 millimeters of penetration at 60 degrees up to 2,000 meters. That's crazy. Oh, but the ride doesn't end there, my friend. The 120 millimeter APDS of the gun on the Conqueror and that one weird tank destroyer, at 10 meters, 0 degrees, it penetrates 477 millimeters. Now it loses just about all of that at 60 degrees, but if you find anything that's flat, like the side of a mouse, maybe even the front of the mouse, you're gonna get through there. Once you go past the 120 millimeter, I warn you, abandon ship immediately, because for some weird reason, it only gets worse. The Challenger's APDS only penetrates 302 millimeters at like 9.7, but that's all the bonus news for now. Thanks for watching.